There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Man, Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Happy belated St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Clearly, this is not St. Patrick's Day when you're watching it, but when we record, it is St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the ye old Twilight Zone podcast, which is called The Fifth Dimension, where we talk Rod Serling's famous and epic and actually somewhat very, what's that word called?
Infamous?
Infamous. What do you mean infamous? No, very progressive series that apparently after this episode. So I am your host once again, Nick. As always, if you like our channel, as always, it's up on my YouTube channel, which is Movie Emporium. But we are also in audio feeds, which include Apple, iTunes, and Google Play. And I'm sure the Lucky Charms guy has his own podcast feed, and you know how this works. So but once again, we're back. We've been gone for a couple weeks. That's my fault. I had to do a lot of reviews, very down and dour reviews, apparently, because there was a lot of depressing stuff in the last couple of weeks. But we're back to talk an episode that I was not expecting to like, but maybe if we ended up liking it, I don't know. We'll talk about it. But first, we got to introduce some other people that have always, are always on this channel to join as podcast hosts. First, we're going to talk about and we're going to introduce the man who will beat any saber with a 45-pound vest, and that of course is Jacob of Jacob Anders Reviews, who actually no longer has a beard, which is really strange and weird. But sometimes you gotta shave that beard after a sweat and workout. So
I lost it.
I know. What's up, Jacob? How's your little vacation been?
My vacation? What vacation?
Well, vacation away from the podcast.
oh yeah. It's fine. I missed it. I feel like we haven't recorded in forever, but it's only been 1 week.
I know.
Well, I guess 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been forever though.
It does.
But I'm looking forward to getting back into it. Last week I felt like I was forgetting something. In fact, I think one day that we all got together for another thing we were doing, I thought we were doing this, and I was incorrect. But I mean, I'm prepared this time. I watched it.
Yay!
I know we were all watching a movie together the other night, and Jacob comes on and goes, "Oh shit! I think I forgot to watch the episode." I'm like, "Jacob, we're not recording." It's like, "Oh shit! It's been so long."
I thought we were recording for the Fifth Dimension, but we were doing something else. I was like, "Oh well, yeah. Hey, I feel better. I've been stressing for the past hour and a half for no reason."
That's why you always get your feelings out. It's the best way to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, that other voice you hear is the YouTuber who's both drinking a big cold cup of Ireland's finest pale ale, and is also celebrating today on St. Patrick's Day her 3rd year anniversary as a YouTuber. And that, of course, is Triv of Trivial Theater. Congratulations, Triv, for making it 3 years.
Cheers! The theater, the theater is still standing despite all the shit that I put it through. It's been flooded. It's been invaded by ape hands. There have been things all over the place. There was grabbers. It was weird. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but seriously, congratulations, because a lot of people don't make it 3 years on YouTube. They usually quit and go and say they can't do it anymore, and all of us have made it 3+ years. So I mean, it's pretty awesome to think about. So,
well, am I intelligent or stupid? I'm not sure which.
I think we're all at that point where I think we may be idiots. I don't know, or maybe just insane. I mean, when Jacob is putting on 45-pound vests, I mean, we're getting to that point where we're just doing whatever it takes to get you guys to watch.
Yes.
Let's do it for the views, baby.
All about the views, about the views. No,
I know.
All about the views, about the views. Anyway.
But clearly, I can't not without saying, but these two are, of course, the big, tall Uranuses of my heart. So there you go.
Are you saying we're asses? Because I don't know how else to take that.
I mean,
I'm definitely an ass.
Yes.
You made me into an ass, so you are clearly the big, tall Uranuses. So I guess it's 3 tall Uranuses.
Hey-o.
Oh, shit. But of course, we're not here to talk about the Uranus. We're talking about Twilight Zone, people. I mean, get together. We've only been gone 2 weeks. I swear to God. I'm gonna have to find some new podcast shows. No, in all honesty, we're talking about an episode that I was hearing was very divisive, to be fairly honest. I didn't know what I was getting myself into because I don't remember this episode. I've seen it probably at some point, but I don't remember it. And I'm sure that both of you guys, especially Jacob, doesn't remember very well, or maybe you do. I don't know at this point because some episodes you remember. Yeah,
Nope.
I didn't. Yeah. But the episode,
which I thought was odd because this one does have some things in it that we'll get into, I'm sure, here in just a minute, that should be very memorable. There's some milestones in this one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an episode that, we'll talk about it. Yeah, you're right, milestone. I was going to say milestones as well. Then I realized you just said that. So, but this is season one.
Stole your thunder.
No, that's all right. I'm used to it. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
No, but we're talking about season 1, episode 27, which is called The Big Tall Wish.
Wow.
Directed by Ron Winston, written by Rod Serling, music by Jerry Goldsmith with harmonica solos, which is kind of interesting. Production code 173-3630 because we're getting close to the end of the first season, of course. So this is the 30th episode recorded. Air date April 8th, 1960. The Big Tall Wishes stars Ivan Dixon as Bully Jackson, Stephen Perry as Henry Thompson, and Kim Hamilton as Francis Thompson, as well as some other characters. So we've been gone a couple of weeks, coming back to this series, and now that we've gotten The Big Tall Wish, did you guys go in expecting this episode to go the way it did? Did you think this episode was going to suck? Where did you guys stand before you started watching this episode? Were you like me? You're like, I'm gonna have to watch this episode. I don't want to do this.
I remember this one. I never remember these episodes by name. I do remember the basic, like you see the first couple minutes and you do remember it. But it was one of those things where like several times throughout the episode, I had to like think, oh, okay, so they're going in this direction, and then you kind of lose it, and then at the end it's like, oh, okay, you remember the episode, but it's like nothing goes the way it seems like you think it's gonna go. So I remember the overall premise, what was gonna happen, but like the fine-tuning bits about where it was going was kind of outside my realm. It's like boxing, Wish, and that's about it.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about this episode, and going into it, I didn't really think anything because I didn't know what the hell it was going to be about. And even a few minutes into it, I still didn't know what the hell it was going to be about because it takes a few minutes to get started. We'll say that.
I mean, it's a really heady episode. I mean, let's just get this out of the way now. Triv, actually, I read this earlier, but Triv reminded me because, of course, my mind's going like 6,000 miles a minute with everything I've been doing the last 2 weeks. But this episode is actually very significant for being an episode that deals with a primarily black lead, black cast.
Black cast, yeah.
Yeah, with like 3 major characters that are African American. And I think it won an award for that.
It was the Unity Award for Outstanding Contributions to Better Race Relations.
Yeah, and if there's
in 1961, damn.
I know.
Yeah. Well, this would have aired in 60, so it's probably like the next year. They take all the stuff.
I'm just saying, in the early 60s, they actually had an award like that.
Yeah.
Which I just find like, wow. wow.
Wow. Tight.
Yeah, tight. Super easy, barely any inconvenience. Maybe not 1960. No, but it's this just shows you how progressive Rod Serling was. I don't know if he did this. I didn't really read up on it, but I'm sure he did this just on the view of like racism in the 60s and the whole movement of the KKK and stuff like that. And just, this episode, if you think about it, I mean, not to kind of progress forward in the story, but if you think about it, it's about a guy, an African-American guy that's been beaten down to his basic core. And I mean, before we get into the actual opening narration, I mean, he talks to Henry's character, who's a young kid who apparently makes big, tall wishes that apparently come true at some point. And he explains like Rod, what's the guy from Jaws? When him and what's that?
No, just
which one are we talking about?
When Quentin, the guy that what's his face? God damn it, I can't remember Jaws people anymore.
Brody?
Quentin.
Sergeant
no,
Brody?
the other Hooper. Yeah, Quentin Hooper talking about their scars.
Hooper. Oh, okay.
When they get him. This is kind of what he's doing
in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you think about it, this guy's been through a lot of shit in his life, and he's not a very upbeat person anymore. He's old. He's a guy that's on his last leg, and he's getting ready to face another match that might ruin his life, I guess you could say. I don't know. Right before this starts, it leads into the opening narration, which I will give to Jacob because it takes a while to read.
Yeah, it does. In this corner of the universe, a prize fighter named Bully Jackson, 183 pounds and an hour and a half away from a comeback at St. Nick's Arena. Mr. Bully Jackson, who by the standards of his profession is an aging, over-the-hill relic of what was, and who now sees a reflection of a man who's left too many pieces of his youth in too many stadiums for too many years before too many screaming people. Mr. Bully Jackson, who might do well to look for some gentle magic in the hard surfaced glass that stares back at him.
So, looking at this opening narration, it's pretty much what I said earlier. This guy has been beaten down so much. I mean, you look at boxing, people in boxing just get all kinds of fucked up. I mean, it is what it is, but it's also, I don't know if you guys agree, it's also a story about a man dealing with a lot of issues pertaining to the 50s and 60s and even 40s, and how people look at culture and the African American culture and stuff like that. I mean, it's probably not like that heavy, but it's, this guy's gone through a lot of shit, and you see this when he talks to, when we were introduced to, of course, Bully Jackson, and he's a guy that used to be a prize fighter, and now he's kind of a has-been. And we have Henry's character, who in essence is a kid that can somehow ignite wishes, which is what his mom talks about later on. But I gotta ask you guys, like, when you see Bully, when you see him start talking about his scars, do you think it was something that was dealing with like a racism at the time, or do you guys have a different meaning behind everything?
I mean, for this specifically, I think he was more just talking his fight history, and like, now regarded how that sits, like what kind of fights he was in, if they were like more street fights versus like actual like not street fights, but like unsanctioned boxing things versus like the sanctioned hardcore kind. I don't know if that's more what he meant. I will say though, like when they first see him look into a mirror and he sees the kid over his shoulder, I was thinking that he was confronting a younger version of himself from the very start.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about, because like I said, the mirror always shows you your true self, and he's looking in the mirror and he looks at a kid who has a lot of hope in his life, and he has a lot of hope for this, this guy named Bully Jackson. And it's really, really kind of deep, and it's kind of sad that Bully has gotten to himself. I mean, we can say all we want, but as hard as we try, we do see ourselves every once in a while down on ourselves and pissed off at the world and feeling like we don't have anything else to give. And then, it kind of turns itself around when we start, doing what we need to do. But I mean, what about you, Jacob?
I didn't get any type of vibes that this was playing into the fact that he was his race at all. I didn't, and I'd like to say that's intentional, because if you read Serling's quotes about this episode and about people, he pretty much said, and I'm paraphrasing, that there's this, what we've traditionally been, the people that we've traditionally been putting on film and TV for all these years are fine, but there is this other sect of people that haven't been getting their time in the light, that we've been not giving an opportunity, that is full of like great, performers and actors. And I think he just wanted, I think he obviously was making a point to have a primarily Black cast, especially in his main cast. And that was a statement unto itself in 1960. But I didn't get like the story itself. I never got anything that spoke about any type of race or went to that. I'm sure if you want to see something, you're going to see something. I'm sure people could go and look at it and say, oh, it was, it had something to do with that, but nothing ever really was brought up. And I'd like to think it was intentionally done. Like, this could have been a white or Black character.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
These characters, they didn't have to be, there was nothing about it that was specifically African American besides the people that were playing it. I'd like to think that Serling was progressive enough and also had enough forethought to did that on purpose to show that, hey, you don't have to hire Black people just to play Black roles. Look, they can play any role, because this could be anybody. It's not about race. It's not about anybody. There's just a person doing a really good job in a performance, and anybody could do it. So I think it was purposely done. I could be totally off the mark there, but I'd like to think that that's what it was, and that's how progressive Serling was.
Yeah, I mean, when it came, like it says in like Wikipedia, I'm sure it says in the Twilight Zone book that I have sitting around here somewhere, that the idea of a main black character was not very common. Of course, it was used, like you said, Jacob, as a kind of a stereotypical black person in a series. I mean, you look at like Gone with the Wind, and the main maid won an Oscar, but she wasn't allowed in the hall for it. And I mean, that it's just, now it's like it's nothing. I mean, you look at it, white, African American, Asian, Puerto Rican, whatever culture, and there is just, everybody's rooted in with everybody. And now at this point, but I mean, looking back on that, you can just see how substantial it was. And this episode is not what I would call the lightest of episodes, but it's definitely something that I feel like really has an interesting message about looking upon, like I said, upon our past. Maybe I'm wrong with the whole dealing with some racism aspects in the background, which I always seem to think, but it's really has some interesting things about how we kind of get beaten down in our life. But he starts talking to the kid, he starts showing the scars, and he is going to box in a match or whatever. There's actually newspaper articles all over the place that we see that says Bully Johnson, blah blah blah, big fight of his career or whatever. And he meets the mother of what we learn is Henry, who's a young kid, and she talks about the big wish, because this kid keeps talking about he wants to make the big wishes, which is, I think, actually kind of nice, because the kid is I don't know if you guys agree, somebody that's like a dreamer, somebody that
he's hopeful.
Really,
he's got that childhood, like,
he doesn't have those
just
scars.
And he just, like, kids have that enthusiasm. They have that boundless, like, belief in the power of good, for a lot of them, at least, the way they're portrayed.
Yeah.
I will say
that was a big part of this episode.
Oh, hugely so.
How he, like you said, Bully's beaten down to the point to where he just lost all the magic and the magic in his life, if you will. And the kid, it's kind of sad, because by the time we get to the end, which I know we'll get there, it's almost like the kid does too. But then there's a glimmer of hope that Bully kind of says, maybe I was wrong. Don't lose it. Maybe there is some still out there.
I will also say that, Nick, when you were talking about, like, kind of the racial aspect of this one, I do think that you could, like Jacob said, you can look at this, kind of however you want. That's one good thing about Twilight Zone episodes, is there's a lot of openness for interpretation. But I think you could look at some of the characters, like the promoter guy, the guy that's trying to get him to throw the boxing match, or trying to tempt him into. That at least to some extent he's going after him because he thinks he's going to be an easy, like, person to turn, whether that be because of his age or because of his race, we don't know. But I think that does play into things to some extent. I
mean, yeah, it's always a possibility.
I think it's just because he's over the hill.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could see.
I do need to throw out there real quick. I am kind of I don't know if it's the way I was raised or not, because I was raised on equality and all that stuff, and I miss stuff like that a lot of times. I mean, especially nowadays, I miss some, like, little details like that, because I generally, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm so great or anything, but I truly don't. I don't look at the world that way a lot of the time. I don't see things like that. So sometimes I do have to have things, like, put in front of me and someone say, no, see right there. And I struggle with that sometimes, because I know nowadays, especially, people are seeing this kind of stuff everywhere. And I don't think it's always the case. No. Sometimes it is, definitely. And so since I don't always just see it myself right out the gate, I think that sometimes I struggle with, is that what it is? Is it not? Because this person, what they said kind of makes sense, but are they just, like, doing mental gymnastics to get there? I don't know. But with this one, I thought, I don't know, like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that a lot there, I did not get any race vibes from this, beyond the fact that the show itself has nothing to do with the story, that the show itself did have a primarily black main cast. And of course that was a statement. I mean, you can't say that it wasn't. Twilight Zone just all of a sudden has an episode that is primarily black cast in 1960. And I mean, Serling said that himself. But beyond that, I just felt like the episode was about people. You know, on the page, I don't feel like the script said, you know, Bully Jackson, a white boxer or a black boxer or anything like that. I just think it just described a character.
And I agree with you. I think it's just like, I think you can, you could, again, just as far as interpretation, I think that you can, like you say, it's kind of an open book as far as the person that Bowie Jackson could be. And I think that just like, it opens it up to interpretation from, you put yourself in that space.
Well, you know what, honestly, this episode reminds me of, and I was talking about it with a couple of my friends at a restaurant the other night, and we were talking about The Wrestler, the Mickey Rourke film, about an individual who's like way down on his luck, is trying to do everything in his power, and all he can get is matches where he and his opponent are like slicing each other with like the blades and shit. And that's the same thing here, where all he has is a couple rounds and he's gonna get knocked out. And this promoter offers him, to work in the stable of boxers, promise 2 rounds, 2 or 3 prelims each month. And that goes back on what you say, Jacob. It's about, the individual and just how shit just goes downhill. The older you get, the more and more tear you work on your body. And it's depressing if you think about it. But I mean, this episode has a lot of interesting, commentary about that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, when he goes, he talks to the mother, and she tells the story about the kid made a big wish about $15 rent due, and the woman sent a check, and the woman was a believer, I guess. And then he gets all the the little kid, the kid Henry, he talks to him through the window. He's like, I'm gonna make a big tall wish for you. Like, I wish someone would make me a big tall wish of life and money and
right.
But it's, as we find out later, it's about believing in the magic.
Yeah, there ain't no magic.
Yeah,
no,
I like that part.
Yeah.
It's which is why it's so devastating what happens at the end. It's like, we'll get into the end of the act is when he basically tries to hit, I think the promoter's name is Sam or something like that, and he tries to hit him, and he actually hits the wall and like breaks his knuckles or some shit. And the guy that looks like the guy from Rocky is like, why'd you do that to yourself? You're getting old or some shit. But that's kind of where the end of the act goes. He goes to fight. No. Okay, give it to me.
You are missing a crucial thing in this scene.
Okay,
that I just could not take my eyes off of. The promote, or not the coach. I guess I call him as coach. Hang on, let me look here.
He's his trainer or something, I assume.
Yeah, his trainer. That's what I was looking for. Because I need this visual representation for you guys to see what I saw. We have either a lineage thing going on here or time travel, one or the other. This guy right here. Yeah. Okay, so apparently, like I said, we either got like a Bully's trainer. It's either a time travel situation or a lineage situation we're aware of. This, I mean, deadpan, it has to be Willem Dafoe's dad.
Oh my God, he totally looks like him. No, he totally looks
Willem
like
Dafoe
William Dafoe.
Is an older gentleman, but he ain't that old.
No.
It's either Willem Dafoe's dad or fucking time travel has been confirmed.
Agreed. It's scary how much he looks like him.
So,
I mean, if you think about it, you ever see those videos or those pictures of like cell phones seeing the 1800s or some shit? I mean, it's always possible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, this is Willem Dafoe. Probably, if it is him, if he's time traveling, this is like probably 90s Willem Dafoe. So I'd say he wouldn't have a cell phone; he'd have a beeper. So there's probably a beeper in his pocket, and we just don't know it. So
is his body of lies Willem Dafoe?
Just wanted to share that. Yeah. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
Well, to be fair, you gave me less edits I have to do now since you showed the picture. Oh shit.
Oh, there's also a really good lexicon phrase in here.
I wrote it down, but I seem to either deleted it, or what was the lexicon word?
Legs like rubber. It's kind of like shoulders like pudding, legs like rubber.
Yeah.
Oh, we got legs like rubber and pudding shoulders.
Yep.
Man.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
The only things I had were he pulled a rock and half his artillery is gone.
Yeah. He also said it fixed. It's not. I think it's still relatively used today, but he fixed your wagon good.
They crossed the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Well, my dad always used to say it'll fix your little red wagon.
I feel like we haven't had a lexicon phrase in a while, but it looks like the last one was dictaphone, and that would have been the last.
That was
the last
I
one.
don't
the
even think that. I don't
Future
think that
Man.
was the dictaphone.
I tell you, I kind of went ahead to the
Dictaphone.
next
Dick
episode.
-2-phone.
I went to the next episode just because I wanted to watch one ahead. There's a lot of good words coming up.
Ooh,
Jesus is going ahead in time.
Yes, I am.
So Bully hurts his hand, and it seems like he breaks his hand apparently from hitting that wall, like slightly hard, but not hard enough. And he's basically pulled into the ring right at the end of the act. So I got to ask you guys, as I usually do, how did you feel about the act? Did you guys enjoy it? Do you feel that it is worthy of a first act in a Twilight Zone episode?
It was well put together. You know, it's one of those episodes where all the kind of heady stuff happened after the break, and that's not bad. And there was a lot of stuff to build up to kind of get the understanding of stuff. I mean, it was a solid start, you know, and it definitely kept you guessing if you hadn't seen it previously as to like what was going to happen next.
I thought there was a lot of setup in the beginning of this episode for what's to come. You know, they really hammer home the fact that Bully has just kind of had a rough run of it, and he is kind of he's washed up. I mean, he's Rocky at the beginning of Rocky. He's washed up. That's why the guy came to him and said, "Hey, why don't you join this? You're washed up now. Here's your next, step in life." And he's really wanting this, even though this fight might not even really be that big of a deal. He's wanting this fight to go well, and he views this as kind of like a comeback thing. And of course, we have the kid saying, "I'm going to make a big wish for you, Bully," and all that. But I ain't gonna lie, the first half of this episode was kind of slow for me. It was just kind of like not a lot was happening. I understand we needed this stuff for the rest of the episode. I just wish they had done it in a more enticing way. However, I will say that, and this goes for the whole episode, but we're talking about the beginning right now. The way that this episode shot, the technical aspects of it, and the performances are particularly good. Like the performances are a step above what we usually get. And I'm not trying to be like some white knight and say, well, it's the first one with like an all black cast. And no, it really was good. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, he made sure because clearly, like I said, I don't think the episode so much deals with race, but I think Serling was trying to make a statement with having an all black cast in 1960. So I'm sure he wanted to make sure, hey, whoever we get in here, let's make sure they're good, because they don't get a lot of opportunity. So let's make sure that we get the good ones in here. I think he did a really good job. All of our the woman, I can't remember her name, and Bully and the little boy, I thought they were all really good, and especially more so in the later second half of the episode. But even in the first half, just the way that it's shot. Some of it's Twilight Zone-esque, but there's some parts of it that are shot very much like cinematic of 1960. It's shot very much like a movie would be, and they use some different camera angles and techniques that you typically don't see in the Twilight Zone up to this point very much. So from a technical side of things, well, there's one thing. Does he have prosthetics on his face?
Yeah. He probably does, yeah. It's scars and probably.
There's definitely a difference between the look of his nose and like the eye. Look. Yeah. Well, he talks about at one point how he almost lost part of his eye. Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of his eyes is the prosthetics, it's 1960 in a TV show, so I don't want to rag on it too much. But those did kind of jump out at me here or there. They weren't awful, but considering what we have nowadays, that's not even a comparison. But those were there. But everything else, all the other technical aspects of the episode, I thought were really good, and I thought the performances were really damn good.
Yeah.
I just wish the execution of the first half of the episode had been, I don't even know if it's quicker or just more interesting. It just was kind of, okay, he's down on his luck, we get it. This little kid's gonna make a wish. Those are the two things we needed out of this, and he feels like this match is important to him, but it kind of drug for me. But the performances are what really kept me going in it, though.
Yeah. Well, I still think it, unlike some episodes we've watched, it does definitely give you at least enough meat to the bone in the first act to kind of allow the story to breathe as it moves along, because I do think the second act does kind of move way too quickly, especially after the wish, which we'll talk about. But it was really weird to me. But I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but what were you gonna say, Triv?
I was just gonna say, how did you guys feel? So we've got the wish, we've got the kind of redemption boxing match. Do you think the promoter was needed for this? Like, it kind of felt like it's a side thing that's added to kind of up the stakes, but I don't know if it was needed.
I think it was needed.
Just more salt to the wound to show that he's over the hill.
True.
It's somebody trying to abuse his age and stuff.
Yeah, you said something and it brought something up to me. I think this episode would have better, because Nick has a point. I think the beginning did a really good job of letting the characters breathe. I just wish it had. I don't know. I love character development and I want more of it, but it just was slow. But I do think that it might have been better. And the second half, I think, moves really fast. It's like, whoa, okay, the thing happens and we just go. And yeah, sure, it's the payoff to all the character development and all the stuff that happened in the first act. But I think a better cutoff point, if they had put the cutoff point, which we're going to talk about in a minute, from when the thing happens and the switcheroo happens and he comes to after that and he's like, oh, right there where it cuts and then he goes back home. I wish they had cut it there and cut some of that beginning part out and shortened that and made the second half a bit longer. But like if it had ended, if they had gone to commercial break where he's just kind of like, I won, just kind of confused, and then we come back and he's walking home and we had gotten more of that, I think the episode would have felt a bit more balanced to me. I mean,
I would definitely agree with that. No, I think you're right.
I like that idea. That seems like a better cutting point for me, at least.
Because what was the cutting point before? It was like when he's putting on when he's struggling to put on the glove.
Yeah, when he literally walks through the tunnel.
When he goes, he's walking through and everything from then when we come back is just like 100 miles a minute. Yeah. It didn't have as much time to breathe as what came before it.
And well, actually, let's go ahead and head into the second act. Triv, do you have anything else to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Let's go actually move into the second act. So there's a lot of interesting decisions made for the second act. Clearly, you can tell the two guys in the boxing ring aren't boxing because they're not really moving. What they do close shot, I almost started laughing a little bit because they do close-up shots of every single person in the
it's a lot of hands.
Yeah, a lot of hands touching things and women looking like they're watching a monster movie in the 50s.
And what's that guy doing to that mic?
I know, right?
What is that guy doing to that mic?
Yeah, this guy like
he's double fisting that thing, twirling and everything.
Yeah. So I mean, I get it.
And the women, all the women are doing this. Like hands over their face, like oh.
Yeah, like
why did you come to a boxing match then?
The promoter part of it was cool though. Like he was
But that's the question I got to ask you guys. Yeah. Do you think that was purposely done, or do you think they just needed to convey more people than they had at this boxing match? It was just you've never seen. Honestly, have you ever seen this before in the Twilight Zone since we started doing this? I haven't. It's just a really weird, kind of strange choice. But do you feel it works? Do you feel it's effective?
I mean, I think that, to try and convey like in a way that you can't necessarily get it with the way that they were doing the boxing shots. I think it's a way to back up that it's a nail biter of a fight.
I mean, you got two guys boxing it out. These are actors. They're not boxers. So maybe they decided, hey, these guys are actors. They're not boxers. So it's not going to come off as very realistic. Hey, let's just show the reactions in our I liken it to Ben-Hur, one of my favorite movies ever. There's a part in that movie, I don't know how familiar you guys are with it, when Ben-Hur's family, or his mother and his sister, they've been put in this dungeon for years and years on end, and they're lepers. They got leprosy, and we never see them. Like the guard comes, and for the first time in God knows how long, years and years and years, he opens the gate or the door and flings it open, and he's all like hardcore, like big dick energy and all this, and then he sees them, and the shot is totally on him opening the door. You never see them. They're behind the camera. You can maybe slightly hear them, and you just see his face and like how he changes and how terrified he is because he sees how they look. And that's all you get. I think you see them like, that fucking movie's really long, like 45 minutes later or something like that to an hour. And of course it was the 50s, so makeup wasn't all that, but that shot of showing him his reaction to what he's seeing was all you needed. It was more effective than anything they could have ever shown. And I think maybe they were saying, okay, since we don't have these guys can't box, it's going to come off as cheesy looking. We also don't have a ton of people here to have like the big production. Let's fake it. Let's have them. Let's just show the back of them moving like this here or there. Let's show a bunch of close-ups of reaction shots of people being like, ooh. Instead of showing the hits, we'll have like sounds and we'll just show people reacting to them, their hands and stuff like that. I actually liked that. Now, I mean, it got a little excessive. Like the guy with the microphone, I couldn't help it. He's sitting there like double fisting it, doing that. And I was like, stop. But all the other stuff, like the people have the programs and they're like, oh, and like squeezing it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I get this. I liked that. I thought it was a creative choice. And I thought it was more interesting than just seeing these guys have an obligatory like boxing fight real quick that you're not really invested in, because by this point you kind of sort of understand what's going to happen. So it's like, I liked that they took a little bit more creative, interesting looking route. Actually,
they did actually have a championship boxer to play the role.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know. The way that the trivia is written, I don't quite know if I understand it. Originally cast the lead role was champion boxer Archie Moore, who later exclaimed, "Man, I was in a Twilight Zone episode," when describing the punch delivered by his opponent, Yvonne Durrell. But neither one of them on their Wikipedias at least show up as being in the Twilight Zone episodes.
It might be uncredited or something.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, even then, if he had been in it and they put him in the ring with this other guy who's just an actor, and this other guy's like, I don't want to box an actual professional boxer, even if it's fake. He's gonna kill me.
Yeah,
he's not gonna pull his punches.
They do show some things of like basically Bully getting shit kicked out of him, and that's when Henry goes up and hugs the TV like the Simpsons kids in the Simpsons, going up there and hugging. He's like, give me a big wish, save this guy, make him, that type of thing. It's just it was kind of cute in a lot of respects, because this kid really loves this guy. There's definitely either a big brother relationship there or like a father-son relationship, even though they're not related, which I really liked. And of course we get the kind of the big Twilight Zone moment, the big Twilight Zone twist, where we see, of course, Bully on the ground. What's that? Yeah, but we see Bully on
the Twilight Zone freeze frame.
Yeah, it's like the suitcase thing from Mirror Image.
Yeah.
Going back to the kid on the TV though, I actually like that shot. I thought that was a really we don't see shots like that in Twilight Zone, and typically if you've got a kid that's going to run up on the TV like that, it would be like from across the room, a very television-esque like zoom shot onto the kid close up. I just thought it was a really well lit. That's one of those, that was actually the moment when it showed that kid there. I was like, this episode's had some really interesting camera angles and it's shot differently than other episodes of the Twilight Zone. And it doesn't always seem like they're in a set, which I'm sure they were, but the way it's shot and lit and everything, it seemed like they were in real places at times, and shots like that you just don't see on the show. I know it's a simple thing, but I saw that was one of the things that was a distinct difference in other episodes to me.
Oh, definitely. And it definitely, like, that's part of what makes the Twilight Zone good, is they do take you in different directions. It's not just, 3-camera studio setup that was so common at that point in time. They took risks.
Yeah, because like I said, Bully gets knocked down and all of a sudden everything freezes. As you guys have already mentioned, everything freezes and it's still shots and everything. And then also, what's that? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like,
freeze frame.
I call him the white boxer, but the white boxer's on the ground and Bully's standing up as the winner, and it comes back to reality, or as metaverse reality, whatever you want to call it, and Bully has won. But he talks to Bert, the guy from Rocky or whatever his name is, and he's like, my hand's not hurting, but I don't have any idea about how I got up. And Bert's like, I don't know, you never were actually on the ground. And Bully's like, that's really weird. He's like really confused about what's going on, which I would be too if I get my ass handed to me and all of a sudden I'm the winner. It's it's weird and crazy, but I mean, it leads him basically to walk down the street and everybody's cheering for him. Everybody's excited. They're this guy won. He's now the hero of whatever street he lives on, and that's
and
when
it's community representation too, like regardless of race or anything else, like he's a hero for the folks that live around him.
Yeah, it's a big deal for them.
This is, by the way, where I think the episode should have come back from the break.
Oh, after the still shots,
after him, oh, I won, and him being like, what the hell, and talking to And maybe the part it could have come back when he was talking to Willem Dafoe's dad, David Dafoe, and they were talking about how no, you never hit the ground or whatever. But yeah, after he's sitting there, like I think it should have cut when he's like, and in this corner he wins, and he's like, what the hell just happened? And they kind of and like commercial break and come back.
I just had to laugh that and not knowing ages obviously, but the fact that Boley's trainer calls him old timer. It's like, dude, I'm pretty sure that the trainer is older than he is. It's like, who are you calling old, you bastard?
I don't know. Did you not see people in that day and age? They all looked old.
You're right, but I don't know. I mean, teenagers are played by 50-year-olds, so yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that kid was like 90 years old. You didn't know that?
Well, if he can hold that level of enthusiasm when he gets to be 90, I think he's doing pretty well.
He's actually the original Benjamin Buttons.
Oh God! Wow, impressive.
Yeah. Or Mork from Ork. They age backwards too. Because when they had a kid, he was hatched out of an egg, and he was like a grown ass man.
That must have been a big egg. Holy shit!
So he's walking up the steps after he's been congratulated, and I know there was a thing back in the day where they hold animals up on the roof, or maybe it's still a thing in today's realm. But there's a lot of what's that?
Haven't you seen John Wick 3? Yeah, it is. Lawrence Fishburne's up there on a fucking roof in New York with all kinds of pigeons and birds and shit.
He's the
and then there's also the Springtime for Hitler guy and the producers.
That's true. They're all the homeless lady from
Birds on Roofs.
Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Birds and really homeless looking motherfuckers in large cities on rooftops. It's a thing.
Definitely.
It's a movement.
Oh, I remember one other real quick thing, and this is random. But when he comes back, both times when he comes back to the apartment complex he lives in, there's a sign there that says, "What is truth?" And I don't know what that's like, how that relates to I mean, I'm sure there's probably more with that, but I just thought that was really interesting.
Interesting. I did not notice that actually. He's up on the roof, and Henry's taking care of the rabbits because he apparently is Lenny from that book. He's taking
Tell me about the rabbits, George.
But he goes up there and he tells the kid about the whole boxing match, how weird it was. And Henry tells him, oh, it's because I made that big tall wish. And then this Henry violently grabs the kid. He's like, kid, the wish is not true. The things are not true. It doesn't happen like that. And the kid's like, you gotta believe. And he starts crying. And I was really sad while I was watching this. I'm like, this guy literally has no hope in his life anymore.
Gotta believe.
I know he's got to be fucking like Peter Pan here. Good Lord. And he doesn't. I almost thought he was going to jump off a roof, to be fairly honest. He was so depressed. It's like, this kid give you everything you wanted, and you still are not happy about it. And it just, I don't know if it bothered me or just made me sad and depressed. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it just didn't feel. I felt so bad for Henry.
Well, he said at one point, he told the kid, he said, I don't know, magic's not a thing. You need to get that through your head. I don't know if somebody needs to beat it out of you or not. And I really thought, okay, this is about to take a turn for the dark, and that's going to be the twist. Is he's going to beat this kid to death because he didn't believe his wish or something like that?
Well, and that's the thing.
Thankfully, they went another direction.
Oh, well, that's good that they did.
Different direction.
I'm thinking for the 60s audience, they would have had to. But like that's the thing that it's, and I guess I've got thoughts on both sides, but the fact that Boley was beaten down so bad throughout his entire life, he gets this amazing miracle thing that happens, and he can't let it in. Like it's even if it's happened, it didn't happen.
Well, it's really sad because he had essentially the magic and belief in childlike innocence beaten out of him. He, in a sense, through his actions and the way he handles that and his interactions with this kid, beats it out of the kid. And it's kind of sad that the kid, who was just full of life and full of like this wonder and belief, now loses that because he can't let go. He can't believe in anything other than what's right in front of his face. And I did like, though, how it came back around, at least a little bit of hope, at least, where he says, well, no, maybe there is magic in the world. Maybe magic's not what we're missing. We're just missing people to believe in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, hey, there's that.
If you want to look at it from a generational thing, like as Boley kind of comes up, he has all this stuff that's gone down with him, and then you get Henry, and he's kind of that next generation where there's hope and there's all this stuff, looking towards a brighter future. And even though he didn't go through all of the stuff that Boley went through, all of that stuff does still kind of latch onto him. Like, it's nothing, you can't go forward scot-free. You have to bring everything forward with you. That history is there regardless.
I mean, I question whether Rod Serling knew somebody that was like this. It didn't, if he had come across somebody who was maybe famous or somebody he knew that was, that he tried his best to keep on the good side and really wasn't. He couldn't stay happy, and maybe he wrote about it. Just, we're also talking about the 60s when a lot of crap's going down with a lot of, major situational problems too. So maybe there's some concepts in there. I don't know, but it feels like that this guy just literally just doesn't want to be happy. And I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
I mean, I think given what we know about race from that time, and even putting race aside, when he just as a guy that did boxing, to be at the top of your game. I mean, he even talks about being at the top of his game at one point, being, beaten down and having all of those scars. The ones on his face could easily represent stuff on the inside. That does play in too.
But this kind of leads to, after everything's said and done, Henry's trying to tell him, don't stop believing. If you stop believing, it'll go back the way it was. And of course, it goes back to the way it was. We get the next freeze frame.
Stop believing.
All you need is some Journey.
Sorry.
But we go back to the freeze frame shot, and Bully's on the ground again, and it goes back to normal, and everybody's like kind of, they don't really caring because Bully wasn't expected to win. And that's when what's his face comes in and talks to him, and it just it becomes like it goes back, and it's like a reverse 180 of what he was going through when he first walked down that street. Now everybody just like looking at him and like, this is what we expected to happen. And
tired ass motherfucker.
Exactly.
One guy is like, why didn't you stay home?
Yeah, he goes, I don't know what time at night this is, but he goes like let's just say it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. He knocks on the door of Henry's mom's house, and he's like, is Henry home? And she's like, yeah, he'll see you. He's still awake. And he goes into the room, and they have a conversation. He's like, he pulled a rock.
She said he's asleep,
but then she was like,
yeah, he's here, but he's asleep. And he's like, well, could I talk to him? He's like, no, he's asleep. He got school tomorrow. What the fuck?
I mean, yeah, it's weird, but it has to get to the end of the story. So she's like, sure, why not? Bring him in. It's only like he's only gonna get 6 hours of sleep now. And he tells the kid who's apparently awake, he's like, he pulled a rock, which is a really weird saying. He says half his artillery's gone. And it doesn't matter if he won the fight or he didn't. Henry is still proud of him. He still, has Henry in his corner, and he knows that there could be, if there were a million people that had a wish and had the belief and stuff like that, they would have been different. But he says tomorrow he'll take him to a hockey game, which I wish I could go to a hockey game. And he says he ain't got to make no more wishes. There is no such thing as magic. Maybe there is magic, and maybe there are wishes, maybe not enough to believe. I don't know how I feel about that, if that's depressing or if that's like a hopeful ending, or I don't know.
It is ambiguous in that respect.
Yeah,
it's both. It's depressing that the kid lost all of his childlike innocence and hope, but there's a glimmer of hope that Bully came around and was like, no, don't lose that. That's what's great about you. Maybe there's not enough people to believe. You gotta believe.
Apparently they haven't been to Neverland.
Dude, I don't want to go to Michael Jackson's Neverland.
You know what I mean? Shut up.
No, but
that is the question. Do you think, does the kid remember that this happened, or or do you think he doesn't remember? Like, is that what you mean by ambiguous? What do you guys?
No, I just mean that, like, the way that it's stated, it was very much if people have hope, if people believe, like, just in that respect, I think it leaves it ambiguous, because it is, I mean, human nature, we go from one extreme to the other without really thinking about it. Your mood changes, it's sunshine and rainbows, and then it's, gloom and doom.
I took it as a positive. I think that our character had growth.
Yeah.
He went from thinking there's nothing if I can't see it, I don't believe it. But then, what he experienced, I think the kid did remember, but I think Bully remembered as well, and he regrets that. So,
well, like you say, that glimmer of hope is what makes it positive, and what they choose to do with it from there is what they choose to do from there. So,
And
yeah,
I think I asked you guys this. We already talked about this, but yeah, the kind of the meanings behind the episode and stuff like that. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that? Do you find any other things that were kind of entailing about what the episode was about?
I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward with the messages. I don't think there's a ton of ambiguity as to what it's talking about, the message that it leaves you with. There's a lot to digest with it, and I think you can take from it what you come in with is kind of what you go out with as far as what you take from it. I don't know. I had a hard time knowing what to think.
But do you guys have anything else you want to talk about on the episode at all?
I find myself not knowing how to take this. Like, I think it is a generally positive outro. To have the way that it ended, like, there is that glimmer of hope as compared to leaving it very much like choosing it didn't have Bully choosing to go back and like be able to win, but the idea of standing on his own really did stand out as he got to the top by doing his thing, and by Henry giving him that victory, it wasn't necessarily like him doing it. So I don't know if that played into the overall sense of things, or maybe that's just me reading into it. Like, kind of not measure of a man, but like you get to the top by doing your thing, not relying on other people or shortcuts or whatever.
Man.
I felt like the second part of the episode as a whole, at the end, positives and negatives and how we feel in the end, like about the message and all that aside, I still felt like pretty much the same way I felt in the beginning. I thought technically and performance wise, this was a really good episode. They performed the shit out of it. And I thought they did some really good jobs there. Even the kid.
Oh yeah, kid was great.
And I thought like it had some interesting angles, and like they put a lot of thought into it. It looked more cinematic than we're used to with the Twilight Zone a bit. But the story was just, I mean, I understand the message, and I think it was a good message. But even though it's a 24-minute episode, it felt really stretched out. And it was just kind of, I didn't hate it by any means, but it never really reached those highs of like some of the great Twilight Zone episodes. It was just kind of, I think it's important because of the idea behind when they made the episode, the real world, hey, we're making this episode with all this popular episode or a popular TV show episode with all main cast, all African American. But just the story itself alone, just on paper, you show me that story and I'm like, okay. I mean, it's just missing many hooks in the middle for me. It's just kind of, it's fine. It's like, all right, yeah, that's that's cool.
You know what the main problem is, and this is just my personal opinion. The freeze frame stuff happens so quickly, and his kind of how he goes and visits Henry happens so quickly. Like even though the opening first act is only like 10 minutes long, it feels like it's 10 minutes long, but here it just feels like they're rushing to get to his conclusion that he just doesn't accept the fact that he won, and it really starts to show. And it just, I don't know, that whole scene on the roof is like 3 minutes long, it feels like, and then it's back to the end of the story. And that's just where I come off of it, where it feels like I like the first act, but I feel the second act just suffers from just having to speed through everything. And even with the 12 minutes of runtime, it still feels like they rushed it so quickly that it just didn't have any oomph or any, I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
I think they should have cut some out of the beginning and added some to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And added some quality stuff to the end. And everything was just so, and I know that's part of the character and part of the world. Everything in this episode was so fucking morose. It was just like, ugh. Until that last part where he finally does get some hope, it's just a fucking downer. It's like, life sucks. My life sucks. I'm washed up. I ain't going nowhere. I better win this one or I'm not, getting it. He wins it, has it taken away. It's just downer.
It's weird because like he's given that chance of being the winner like at the end of his career, and it doesn't even make him happy. It's at the end of the Wrestler, where it's been a very down and dour episode, there is some hope on Mickey Rourke's face where he believes that even though he may have had a heart attack or dies at the end of the episode or the movie or whatever, but there's that glimmer of hope. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel like there's, like, as you said, there's any glimmer of hope. It just feels like a guy who is so beaten down that there's nothing happy about him. It's like, you have this like really popular YouTube channel or something like that, and all of a sudden you just become super complacent and just complaining, and you lose all your substance. And I don't know if that's a great way to say it, but
don't you think that's probably the point of it? Like the inability to, just it's kind of the opposite of looking a gift horse in the mouth. Like, even if you have the success, if you don't allow yourself if you don't allow it to sink in, it's not going to mean anything.
Is that like the whole rich thing? Like if you have the money, you're never any happier than when you didn't have the money or something?
Right. It's about the way you look at the world. I mean, to some extent, right? Maybe
he did say something on the roof about that. Like he had said that, like, no, more or less paraphrasing, he said, I don't want it unless I did it. I did that, right? Did I not do that? So maybe it's kind of like hey, this thing he's wanted all his life. He's wanted to be successful in this arena. Now he is. It doesn't matter because he didn't do it. He lost. And maybe that also, they call back to that with the little boy saying, even though you lost, you're always a winner in my book, and that's what really matters. Because that's when he changes his outlook on the whole magic and seeing and believing and all that, is when he's like, he doesn't need to be the winner for everybody else. He just wants to be the winner, the main attraction for those that are important in his life. And that little boy and I guess the woman are the ones that are important. So as long as they think he's the best, that's all that matters. And he didn't realize that before till then.
Don't you think though, too,
it doesn't mean anything if you don't earn it.
Right, exactly. It's not the idea of a self-made man, but it is sort of the idea of a self-made man. Because even earlier on, like everything he did, he fought for himself. Like every boxing match he did himself. Yeah. And that is a very whether you look at it from an American perspective of, we take great pride. And I mean, people in general, you take great pride when you're able to do a thing yourself as compared to someone else, giving you the leg up.
Well, that's why I'm conflicted with this episode, because I think the episode had a lot of good messages, even though it was kind of a downer and morose. I thought there were some really good messages in this episode and some really good points made. It's just the episode as a whole was just kind of, I mean, it was, I hate to say it was good. It was fine. I mean, you take those things away, which they're part of it, so you can't take them away, but you take those things out of the equation, and it's just, the story, the narrative was just whatever, is fine. It wasn't a standout episode in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually
just
do this
based on the narrative alone.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's go into our usual Twilight Zone list that nobody should ever make a list because ours is perfect type of list.
Exactly.
Where the hell would you put this episode?
Here's
where would you start? Like, that's my question. Go ahead.
Well, here's my that's a thought. The one thing that kept going through my head with this episode, and I don't, it's not a one-to-one comparison. It is kind of apples and oranges, but I couldn't get it out of my head. I kind of looked at this episode and I looked at One for the Angels, because you kind of have a similar story of like down and out person. You got the kid that makes the difference one way or the other. And One for the Angels kind of takes it in a very upward, positive aspect. And this one tends to take it a little bit darker, but it also brings it up at the end, that hope is there at the end. So they both end on a variation on hope. I don't know. Well, it doesn't really relate to this, but I don't know.
It definitely deals with like
they share similar themes.
Yeah.
They share similar themes, but I don't think they necessarily should be.
It's definitely not a 1v1. It's definitely not a 1v1 comparison. I don't know. My head just kept going there when I was watching this, and I can't. I guess like you say, it's the themes that kind of are the same sort of idea.
Well, it skews the themes of One for the Angels, but it feels as morose and dour as The Lonely, to be fairly honest.
Yeah.
That's
I knew
where
you were going to start there. I knew it.
No. I'm not saying it to start. I probably am, but I don't mean to start there. But it's like you're looking at man, and a lot of these episodes, especially this type of episode, deal with like the human psychology and human ideology and human condition, just on the simple fact of, what is it like to be a human? What is it like for a person to be beaten down so much that they're just nothing's happy to them? And that's similar to like The Lonely a little bit. He gets a happiness, but it just kind of is taken away from him. So you can imagine that he's going to be not a very happy camper when he goes back to Earth. But I mean, you could look at like What You Need, that this doesn't have a Nan Abs moment. You can look at like What You Need, or I mean, really, there's not an episode, truly, to be honest, that really kind of fits in this kind of category. There's bits and pieces that are used, but there's not like where we can like bounce off one episode to figure out where we can kind of lean towards. So I don't know. Like I would say, is this like
just viewing pleasure alone? I say The Lonely is better than this.
You think so?
Just viewing pleasure alone. I mean, in my opinion, I'd rather watch The Lonely than this episode again.
Yeah,
I can see that. Like you say, though, from a technical perspective,
yes, it was the first episode I was on, but still.
I mean, from a technical perspective, like you said, Jacob, the performances, the technical stuff, I mean, is awesome. Yeah. But obviously, I think rewatchability does play a part in this. I do think that there's more, like, the more you see with this, like the more times you watch this, I do think you'd find more and maybe find answers within what it's saying more so.
Well, sure. As we were talking, there were things that were brought to light for me. And yeah, the technical aspects and the performance aspects, which is technically a technical aspect, I guess, but those aspects were great. They were, but at the end of the day, it's a form of entertainment, and it's the overall experience. And even though those things I really did like, they were standouts. The story is just so it's a tough one, because I like the message, and I like the very end, how it doesn't concretely give you an answer, but it gives you a glimmer of hope. I thought that was done well, but just everything else was just kind of like, yeah, okay, it's fine. I mean, and I'll give The Lonely this much. I just enjoyed it more. I mean, when I sit here and think about which one would I rather watch, and that's like when I have a tough time finding out where to put these things when we're looking at these lists, that's what I always default to. Which one would I rather watch right now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that said, you got Mr. Denton on Doomsday, which is an episode about a drunk guy who kind of has to face his demons in a lot of aspects. And then you have Long Live Walter Jameson, which we talked about, which is about be careful what you wish for and the immortality that he lives through. Ooh, that's where I'm kind of leaning. I think this is better than Judgment Night, because I think that episode was terrible. I don't think it's as good as like Shot an Arrow into the Air, but would you put it like in that realm, or would you go higher? I know you said you watched The Lonely before this, but what about you, Triv?
Which one was the Shot an Arrow into the Air? I
think it's when the guys disappear.
Yeah,
the three guys in the military hospital, and they go to the bar. I don't.
Beer was 20 cents. You know,
I thought it was like 10 cents.
80 cents.
80 was it 80 cents? Okay.
Yeah, that was the one where they raised the price of beer in an episode.
Bastards.
I don't think it's as good as I Shot an Arrow into the Air. Now, Mr. Denton on Doomsday, that's another one that was just like you had 20 minutes of episode for like 22 minutes of episode for 2 minutes of goodness. So yeah. I think it's, for me, I'd probably put it in place of Mr. Denton Does Doomsday and bump that one down.
Mr. Denton Does Doomsday? Is that the sequel to Debbie Does Dallas?
Oh, by the way, I Shot an Arrow into the Air is the one where the guys are in the desert.
Oh, and they shoot each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's at Reno. I shot a man at Reno to just to watch and die.
Shot a man right outside of Reno.
Yeah, exactly. See, I think I preferred this over that one. From like it offered some interesting story, but I don't know. There's more depth of character with this. I'd put it below The Lonely. I think it's below The Lonely, but as far as I Shot an Arrow into the Air, I don't know. I'm right there where I'm doing this number with those two. That's fair. With Shot an Arrow into the Air and this episode, they're just kind of going. For me, it's right there. It's. I just don't know if it goes before or after I Shot an Arrow into the Air. I'm leaning towards after, but if it went before, I would be totally cool with that. I don't know. What do you think, Nick? I know Long Live with Walter Jameson. I think this one raised more questions. Yeah, true. Mr. Denton on Doomsday was just basically a kind of a mystical episode, with a guy who
gets a
And
fake
it's super
potion.
early too.
Yeah.
It's like 3 or 4, one of those two.
I'm with Jacob.
You know,
I would
Mr.
say
Walter or Long Live Walter Jameson is a similar type of episode where it's like all this buildup and all this stuff for one, like the payoff. It's not like it's a lot of buildup and then payoff and then that's it.
Mhm.
And then the end of that one was really fucking weird. Yeah, it's better than that one.
it was just, there wasn't too much to that episode. I don't think we talked as much about like the kind of themes of that episode out. Like Mr. Dead on Doomsday, I enjoy, but man, this is showing air into the air. I don't really like that episode very much, to be honest. Now I think about it, I liked it at the time, but I mean, I would put this below The Lonely. This is
Put it
like
at number 19.
Yeah, this is like
Yeah.
minuscule movements and shit. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Trev?
I'm good putting it at number 19. I think that makes sense.
I think there's a distinct difference in quality and enjoyment. A lot of these are like, from one number to the next. It's like they're so minuscule, like you said. But between those two, I think there's a distinct difference, quality rift right there between The Lonely and I Shot an Arrow into the Air. All the other ones are like right here. It's like, oh yeah, they're real close. And then that one, there's like this gap. We're waiting to fill in that gap with some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Fill in the gaps. But yeah, I think that looks good. Like I said, it's really difficult when you get to this point. Even though we're only 27 episodes in, there'll be much more to talk about later on. So yeah, number 19 is The Big Tall Wish. Number 1 is still Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Number 27 is still The Fever. So the next episode is one I actually enjoy. I don't know if it's a great episode, but it's called A Nice Place to Visit. Apparently Triv has already watched this episode. Might have to bar her from talking about it next week. No, I'm kidding. It's a good episode. It's directed by John Brom, Charles Beaumont, and Rod Serling were writing it. Has Larry Blyden and Sebastian Cabot and John Close. It's a good episode. It's a fun episode. It deals with maybe a returning character that we haven't seen for quite a while. So one that we used to hold in the middle of our list. So
in the build up for this, or the preview of this episode, or of the upcoming episode, Rod Serling says it's an episode that has tongue firmly in cheek.
Exactly. Tongue in the cheek.
Yes. Not that cheek though. That'd be weird.
Geez.
I went, yeah.
So that'll do it. That'll be our take on season 1, episode 27 of The Twilight Zone, which is The Big Tall Wish. Like me, I wish every day for being big and tall. It's kind of nice.
Well, your large shadow.
Yes, big shadow.
Big shadow.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll do it.
Big shadow.
Trev, since you are celebrating your 3rd year anniversary, even though when this episode premieres, you'll be past it, and you're actually doing something cool. We'll let you go first and tell us where they can find you, tell us upcoming events, all that good stuff.
Well, by the time this airs, I will be working on my next review, which is on Fresh, which should be a really interesting one. I will have also put out Grabbers, which was something specific for St. Patty's Day, and I also will have done a live riff stream with TYTD reviews on House on Haunted Hill.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'll make sure that you find out about that, even though this episode comes out way after.
Well, you can. So. That's a great thing about it. You can sync up a YouTube copy and riff it. If you want to. Obviously. Yeah. Otherwise, you can just listen to our fantastically hilarious riffs. Just on your own. Otherwise, you can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater, and you can find me on Twitter at @trivia_chick.
There you go. And Jacob, when you're not trying to kill yourself on your live streams with your extremely I would call impressive
hardcore
hardcore beat savoring.
Yeah. Where can they find your content?
They can find me at Jacob Anders Reviews on YouTube and Jacob Anders Gaming on YouTube, 2 different channels. Go subscribe, check those out, especially the gaming channel, trying to grow that. I'm also over on Twitch at Jacob Anders Reviews, I think, or is it just Jacob Anders? I don't know. Look up that name. I'm sure I'm there. And I'm on Twitter at Red Neville 2, and I talk about the stuff that's on my YouTube channel. So there's that. But yeah, check that out and check out I'm going to be doing more of those streams where I work out. I'm trying to have a more regular workout regime. And I'm going to try and use VR to do most of my working out and see what kind of results I can get. Hopefully, I don't have a heart attack on stream.
Always
I
a
hope
good
that's
thing.
not my claim to fame.
Yeah. It's not the YouTube. It's when you die, like you die like Picasso or something. That's when your shit becomes famous.
Yeah, I'll die and get like tons of subscribers. I'll be like, motherfucker, that's my luck.
You'll be looking down. You're like, my big tall wish is I was
Son of
still
a-
alive. You know.
All I gotta do is believe in it.
That's my
right.
big tall wish. Gotta believe.
It is a great
And-
channel or a great set of channels. Highly worth look at checking
Yeah, you
out.
guys all have great channels.
Well, so
I
do
say
you.
that. I have a channel.
Yeah.
that
You
I
have an
use.
awesome channel, you dork.
Anyways,
Don't make me come down
Nick
there.
puts out the content like no other, man. He
Yeah.
releases.
I learned from you, man. I learned
Freaking
from
beast.
You. I'm like, this man makes a video every day, and he has like 18 kids and a wife, and I'm here complaining because I work a job and have a
Shush.
cat. So I
Don't
need to
make
do a
me
video.
come down there. I will kick your ass.
Hey, at least someone will
I have
visit.
3 cats.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
someone will visit. So, anyways, to finish out this episode, before I close out my stuff, remember we're on my YouTube channel. We're also on Apple iTunes and Google Play. If you want to listen to just our voices, which I think we have heavenly voices, I don't know, but that's just me. You can find it there. Hit the stars, the rate us, and all that good stuff. Yeah, sexy. Boy. Anyways. So anyways, you can also find me at Movie Emporium. Like I said, I've been putting out a lot of content with the Miami Film Festival and all that good stuff just coming out. So look forward to that. And with that said, for myself, Jacob, and of course Triv, we'll see you guys in the next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out.
Recording stopped.
Peace, love, chicken grease.
Well, you're gonna have a lot to cut out, Nick.
It's all right. It's the beginning. I can cut it out.
It's all in the
easily.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yay.
He'll just go to where we actually start and go click.
Yes.
All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
This page. Okay.
Sure.
What's happening, hot stuff?
Hey. What was I gonna say?
Well, hello there.
What was the holiday that was today?
St.
Oh,
Patty's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day.